Welcome in to the Commanders Report live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on a beautiful Thursday evening to talk some Commanders football with us here. We're going to talk about this upcoming game versus the Atlanta Falcons, and of course, we'll be taking your questions on the weekly Commanders Report mailbag. We got some injury updates today that we'll cover in the preview today on Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels, and even a surprise on the injury report today that should be a little bit concerning for Commanders fans out there. And then, of course, we'll answer your questions on the mailbag. You guys know the drill. We already got over 100 Commanders fans in this chat room right now, ready to talk some Commanders football here before we kick things off in Week 4. If you guys want to get a question on the show, the real ones know what to do. You put hashtag Commanders down there in the live chat room along with your question. So, for example, in one comment, you put hashtag Commanders, then right after that, you put your question. So, for example, hashtag Commanders, will the Commanders beat the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday? Or whatever question that you have on the Burgundy and Gold. You guys submit that, then Ponzi, our producer, is going to be able to see the hashtag Commanders questions that are put in. We can get the best questions on the show for free today. If you want to guarantee that your question gets on the show today, you can super chat on today's stream. If you don't know how to super chat, there's a little icon down in the live chat that looks like a dollar bill. You click that icon, and there will be a menu for how much money you want to send in. You guys send it in, and then you can put your question in the comment. And then if that happens, you guarantee that your question makes it on the mailbag today. Now with that, let's bring on our producer. Producer Ponzi is here. Ponzi, how are we doing today, and how are you feeling about this week's matchup against the Falcons?
I'm feeling pretty good. Obviously, it's been a little bit since we've had a live show, but really we're looking forward to it. We watched the game last Sunday. Marcus Mariota balled out. Jaden Daniels should be coming back.
Yeah, it sounds like he'll be back. It sounds like he's on his way back for sure. And kind of in a surprising move, we talked about it yesterday on the show, Ponzi. CJ Gardner-Johnson gets released by the Houston Texans. He was a starting player for the Super Bowl defense last year. Good football player, very versatile player. And it just so happens that the Commanders lost one of their safeties for a very long period of time in Will Harris. Should the Commanders consider bringing in C.J. Gardner-Johnson? What's your take on that, Ponzi?
I know, it's really bad timing because of Darnell Savage. I will say that. They just brought him in after the safety, but I don't think it should change anything. If I'm the Commanders, I'm saying, hey, you want to go beat Philly twice and, make that a deal. I think the C.J. Gardner-Johnson does bring in some character issues. Apparently, in Houston, he was running his little bit of a leash out there as he was trying to blitz more, get his defensive input in. But, I would say I think Dan Quinn's very much a culture guy. He can get everyone to buy in. And, I think that it would be a perfect fit for what Washington wants to do.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect fit for team and player because the team has been looking for someone to take on that box safety role. Will Harris, frankly, has not been filling that role adequately, at least not in my opinion. He hasn't been good enough as a run defender to this point. Obviously, we hope Will gets better quickly after he suffered a fracture in his fibula last week against the Raiders. Hopefully, he can have a full and speedy recovery. But Jeremy Reaves has certainly played pretty well to start this season. I'm guessing Jeremy Reaves will be the starting second safety alongside Quan Martin here this week. And Reaves has played really well as a run defender. He's had some tough hits. He had another one last week, forced a fumble in week 1. He's always been a great special teams player. But if the Commanders don't go out and get a Gardner-Johnson, I'm perfectly okay with Jeremy Reaves as this team's strong safety. He certainly brings the right attitude. I think he deserves an opportunity to show what he can do. But also, I won't hate it at all if they bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who can play in the slot, who can play in the box, is athletic enough to play deep. You can disguise him. You can do a lot of different things with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So I think that, in terms of the teams that CJ would want to come play for, I think the Commanders would be on his short list, a team that theoretically is a title contender. They got a great quarterback. They got a great culture in Dan Quinn. They blitz a lot. That was a big issue that he had with the Houston Texans defense, is that they weren't blitzing enough for his liking. And, I think that the role would be really good for him here. Plus, he gets to play Philly twice a year. They just traded him away. I guarantee you he wants to play Philly twice a year. So keep your eye on C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Obviously, it's too late in the week, I think, for them to sign him and have him play for sure on Sunday. I think Jeremy Reeves will get his shot to show what he can do this week. And if Jeremy plays well, maybe they just not address the safety position anymore and they have Darnell Savage be the backup. But if Reeves doesn't play particularly well and they don't love what they're seeing from Savage in the early days of his Commanders tenure, then I could certainly see C.J. Gardner-Johnson being an option early next week.
Sean asking, why is he a free agent? What happened to make him a free agent?
Well, the Texans released him because apparently there was friction between him and the Houston Texans coaching staff. Gardner-Johnson wanted them to blitz more. He wasn't a big fan of the way they were running things there in Houston, and obviously they started 0-3, so I'm guessing Gardner-Johnson wasn't too happy about that. And apparently he requested a trade, and the Texans said, F that, we're just going to release you. Good riddance. So, Gardner-Johnson is kind of a volatile personality. He's had really bad falling outs with 3 different teams now, the Lions, the Eagles, and now the Texans. So he's
before that too.
He's definitely a powder keg of an individual,
yeah.
But he's a good football player, and he can help this team win football games if Jeremy Reeves isn't going to be cutting it moving forward. Now, before we get into our first segment today, spam those me's if you are a real one. We got over 100 Commanders fans in this chat room. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. We've only got 18 likes, all right? If we can get that up to 40 likes before our first segment today, I would greatly appreciate it. We've got Eon in the chat. We've got Dominic. We got Richard Barker. We've got JG. We got Cesar Castillo. We got Ludo. We got David Clark. Sean T. Burke is here. Ludo is here. We got Corey Croystel. I'm probably butchering that, Corey, but thanks for watching. We got Robert. We've got Drus My Dog. Dreyfus My Dog. All right, I think I got that right. B Money. We got Amanda Pritchard here. We got Matthew and Gabby Shorts videos. We've got John Rassel. We got Richard Barker. Ludo says, what's up, Jack? What's up, man? We got Eli Hokies fan in here. We've got Bill in here. G Tuck is here. We got a good crew of Commanders fans ready to talk some football today. So without further ado, I'm not going to make you guys wait any longer. First up, the Commanders Week 4 preview versus the Atlanta Falcons. I got keys to victory. I got roster breakdown. I've got a scheme breakdown for what the Atlanta Falcons like to run so that you guys can be prepared for this Sunday's matchup, as well as some injury updates for both teams heading into this week. Then we'll get into the mailbag with your questions. Again, guys, hashtag Commanders down in the live chat to get your question on the mailbag for free today. All right, that's going to be it for our build-up here, guys. Let's get right into our first segment of the day. Commanders Week 4 preview versus the Atlanta Falcons. This week, the Commanders travel to Atlanta, Georgia to take on Marcus Mariota and Dan Quinn's former team, the Atlanta Falcons, here in Week 4. If they win, they can improve to 3-1 on the season. If not, they're going to be going down to 2-2 and maybe doing some soul searching moving forward. But before we get into this week's preview, where I go over the keys to victory, scouting report on Michael Penix Jr., and more, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we are currently in a subscriber battle with our frenemies here at the Falcons Today channel here at Chat Sports. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're just 6 new subscribers behind Falcons Today this week. So if we could just get 10 of you guys to click that subscribe button today, we will take the lead. And new viewers, we are counting on you guys to make sure we can get in the lead here and beat the Atlanta Falcons off the field before hopefully the Commanders can beat them on the field in Atlanta on Sunday. So really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And with that, let's dive right into this matchup here between the 2-1 Commanders, who will be going to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta to take on Atlanta, where they are 1-2 right now. All right, and Atlanta is a team that certainly got a young quarterback. They've got a head coach that's still trying to find his way in the National Football League, and Raheem Morris. They got a new DC and Jeff Ulbrich. They've got a lot of new here in Atlanta, and they're still trying to find their way and their identity as a football team this season. And this week, it's actually a revenge game here for Dan Quinn, who will be returning to Atlanta. Of course, he spent many seasons there. Infamously had that 28-3 botching of a Super Bowl versus Tom Brady and the New England Patriots there. And then he ended up getting fired just a few short years after that. So, I'm sure Dan doesn't have any hard feelings towards the Blank family or anything like that, but I'm sure he would love to go into that stadium and beat his former team with the Washington Commanders here. Now, the guys that will be out this week in terms of injuries, Will Harris fractured his fibula last week. He will be out. He was placed on IR. He will miss at least the next 4 weeks. And then the 2 guys on IR that won't be playing for the Falcons in terms of their starters are right tackle Caleb McGarry. He's out for the entirety of the season. And Troy Anderson, an off-ball linebacker, will be out for this one as well. Then there's a number of injuries to watch on both teams. Now, especially the Commanders, because you got Jaden Daniels, who looks like he is on track to play. If he doesn't play, it will be Marcus Mariota, who also, by the way, used to play for the Atlanta Falcons. That could be a potential revenge storyline here. Terry McLaurin dealing with a quad/hip flexor injury. Ian Rapoport from NFL Network reported this week that it's kind of a weird injury, and it's not looking great for his chances of playing on Sunday, which is certainly a big blow to this Commanders offense. But then John Bates and Noah Brown are still dealing with groin injuries. They're questionable at this point in the week. Percy Butler, Trey Amos, and then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was added to the injury report this week. He has not been practicing to start this week off with a knee injury, so we'll keep you guys updated once the final injury report comes out on Friday. But A.J. Terrell, star corner for the Atlanta Falcons, is not expected to be able to go with a hamstring injury this week. Got injured last week, and it's looking like he's not going to be able to play versus the Commanders on Sunday. So that should be so you're losing your number 1 receiver most likely in Terry McLaurin, but at the same time they're not going to have their number 1 corner. So I guess that evens out a little bit. But the results so far for the Atlanta Falcons, they are 1-2. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home 23-20 in a very closely fought divisional matchup. Then they've been on the road the last 2 weeks. They beat the Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy at US Bank Stadium 22-6. A dominating defensive performance, and then they follow that up with maybe their worst performance of the year, 30-0 loss to an 0-2 Carolina Panthers team in Charlotte. So they're certainly looking for a bounce back here this week. Taking a look at the scheme and coaching breakdown for the Atlanta Falcons, head coach Raheem Morris has had multiple interim stops, and now he's had an opportunity to be a head coach in this league full-time, and this is his second year in Atlanta. He is currently 30-49 as an NFL head coach. The offense that they run here is a McVay West Coast system brought over by Zach Robinson, who used to work for McVay in Los Angeles. Then on defense, they run a solid 4-2 kind of nickel-based defense led by Jeff Ulbrich. Their new defensive coordinator. Of course, he comes over from the New York Jets, previously working for Robert Saleh. Then we get to the offensive roster here for Atlanta. You got Michael Penix Jr., the second-year quarterback out of Washington, leading the way here. Along the offensive trench, you've got Jake Matthews as an excellent left tackle. You got Matthew Bergeron at left guard, Ryan Newsel as a center. Then you got one of the best, if not the best, guard in football, and Chris Lindstrom there on the right side. And then they've got Elijah Wilkerson as the starting right tackle right now after Caleb McGarry had that season-ending injury. They run a lot of 11 personnel, which means 3 receivers on the field. So you're going to have Drake London, you're going to have Darnell Mooney, and you're going to have Ray McLeod out there for most of the time with this Falcons team. But then Bijan Robinson is another really big receiving threat that you're going to have to look out for, not to mention what he brings with his legs in the ground game. And Kyle Pitts has actually turned it around a little bit so far this year. They're actually prioritizing getting him the football, and he's actually doing a pretty decent job so far this year. So hopefully after kind of corralling Brock Bowers and the Raiders last week, they can do the same with Kyle Pitts. Then along the defensive line, they got 2 rookies starting for them at the edge. They spent 2 first-round picks, and they gave up next year's first-round pick to be able to go out and get the other one here. You got Jalen Walker and James Pierce, 2 guys that are very highly touted coming out of the SEC. They've had some really good moments to start their rookie careers here. Then you got David Onyemata and Zach Harrison on the interior. A little bit of a squishy defensive interior there that I think the Commanders can maybe take advantage of. Running the ball up the middle with some power run scheme, I think, is something that Cliff Kingsbury should definitely tap into this weekend. Then the inside linebackers with Troy Anderson now. You got Caden Ellis, a really good off-ball backer, and then Divine Diablo is right now starting for them with Anderson out of the lineup. Then with A.J. Terrell expected to be out this week with a hamstring injury, this is what I'm expecting the starting secondary for Atlanta to look like this week. Mike Hughes and D. Alford will be the starting cornerback duo. Then you got Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts as the 2 safeties, and then Billy Bowman Jr. is going to be the nickel cornerback. The 2 rookies there, Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman, have been really, really good in coverage to start this year. They've made some big impact plays to this point in the season. So still to come here, my keys to victory versus the Falcons. I've got my scouting report on quarterback Michael Penix Jr. and how the Commanders can attack him. And then I've got my official Week 4 score prediction coming up here in just a few minutes. But before we get into the rest of this week's preview here on the Commanders Report, let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'll be getting my PrizePicks lineups in all season long and all week long. Tonight, it's going to be Thursday night football between the Cardinals and Seahawks. PrizePicks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from PrizePicks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks will not count that as a loss. So for this particular matchup, Commanders versus Falcons, this is my PrizePicks lineup for this week. I'm taking the more on rushing and receiving yards for Bijan Robinson. I'm taking the more for Matt Gay field goals made. I'm taking the less on Michael Penix passing yards. So if you guys want to get a projection in today, you can do so by downloading the PrizePicks app today and using code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the PrizePicks app today. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So now let's get to our keys to victory here to beat the Atlanta Falcons here in Week 4, and we'll start with Michael Penix Jr., and I just don't think that this defense should let him off easy, all right? I want Joe Witt and Dan Quinn to throw everything that they've got at him in terms of blitzes, in terms of rotating coverages, because this is a young quarterback that has had some mental processing issues and some decision-making issues, and he doesn't have a lot of playmaking ability outside of structure. You guys can take a look here. Defenses have really been feasting against this Falcons passing attack to start the season. Just a 58.6% completion percentage, about 200 passing yards a game. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns through 3 weeks, and his passer rating certainly reflects that. And now, when you look at Michael Penix's profile here as a player, as a talent, he's got an incredible amount of arm strength. He can push the ball down the field, fit it into tight windows to every level of the field. He wants to be aggressive with it as well. He wants to throw the ball down the field. And then some of the mental processing stuff down the field is actually pretty advanced for somebody at his point in his NFL career. And frankly, it needs to be with his lack of mobility, his lack of playmaking ability. He really doesn't provide them anything outside of structure. So if you can get him off his first and second reads and you can force him to try and, scramble a little bit, it's not going to be good for Michael Penix Jr. He's going to force the ball into tight windows. I think Washington's focus here needs to be to, light him up a little bit, but also to force Penix to be methodical, all right? Keep the lid on the defense. Force him to take 5, 10-yard chunks off the field there instead of the 50-yard bomb down the field. Force him to check it down. Make him, have him be out there on the field for as many plays as possible, essentially, and then light him up in certain key situations to force him into bad decisions. I have every confidence in the world that Joe Witt and Dan Quinn are going to do a good job on Michael Penix here on Sunday. Then really the big thing on defense for the Commanders, guys, is going to be to contain Bijan Robinson, because this is the one guy that, in my opinion, can kill you in this Atlanta offense. All right, Bijan is one of the most explosive running backs in the league. He's already up to 239 yards rushing so far this year, on top of his 164 yards receiving, and he has just been an absolute force to start this year. Now, he only has 1 touchdown to start off the year, but I'm sure they're going to want to feed him a little bit more, and they also go to Tyler Algier. They go to their other backs here as well, so they want to have a really established run game. The Commanders can't let that happen. They got to load the box. They got to do those things. They got to, maintain their run fits. They got to play good run defense, and this defensive front needs to continue to win the line of scrimmage. They've certainly shown that an ability to do that through the first 3 weeks to this point. They got to do it again in Atlanta on Sunday. Then we move on over to the offensive side of the ball here, which I think the main thing this week, especially with Terry McLaurin probably not playing on Sunday, is to get the run game going, all right? When you can get creative with this, you can do jet sweeps and orbit motions with Deebo Samuel. You can do, you can mix things up in terms of which running back is out there. They certainly did that last week where they have like a true committee right now where you've got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, you've got Jerry McNichols, and you got Chris Rodriguez Jr. all getting their fair share of carries right now. And then, you can also incorporate the quarterback, whether that's Jaden Daniels coming back on Sunday. It certainly seems like he's on track to do that. Or whether that's Marcus Mariota, who certainly showed that he's got some wheels left in the tank. I think that's going to be a big part of the offensive game plan for Cliff Kingsbury, and it certainly needs to be if this team's going to put up a lot of points. Then another thing that the offense needs to do is to keep the rookie edge rushers at bay. Jalen Walker and James Pierce have been pretty explosive to start their rookie campaigns, and Laramie Tunsil and a fellow rookie, Josh Connerly Jr., is going to be tasked with stopping them. I have to say, though, man, like going up against Brian Burns, Micah Parsons, and Max Crosby the first 3 weeks, going up against James Pierce Jr. should be a walk in the park for Josh Connerly Jr. Compared to those superstars. Then we get to the next key to victory here on offense, which is that I think a young wide receiver of some sort needs to step up, because you're not going to have Terry McLaurin out there. It's sounding like you're not going to have Noah Brown out there either. So you're going to have Debo, and then you're probably going to have Luke McCaffrey and or Jalen Lane out there. They might go 2 tight ends. They might even go a lot of 3 tight ends and really, go into the run game. It'll be interesting to see what the offensive game plan is for Cliff Kingsbury versus this Atlanta defense. But you can't just live in one wide receiver sets all day long, especially when that one receiver is Debo Samuel, and he's not separating very much, right? So you got to have one of these younger receivers step up, and I'm hoping that it's Luke McCaffrey, who's shown some flashes over the last 2 weeks. Then the final key to victory for me, guys, is to play a clean game. All right, I really do believe that this Washington Commanders team is just a better overall football team than this Atlanta team. And I think that if you can limit the turnovers, if you can limit the penalties, that's been an issue with the Commanders in the past. Hopefully they can be a very well-rounded unit here, not to make too many bone-crushing mistakes. And I think if that happens, they will come away with a victory. So I'm going to predict a 28-20 victory for your Washington Commanders this week. And honestly, if this defense really steps up, and they can stop Bijan Robinson, they can win the line of scrimmage, and they can do some fun stuff to get Michael Penix Jr. uncomfortable, it might even be less than 20 points given up. So I think that whoever's at quarterback, Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, I still have the Commanders winning either way. Honestly, the Commanders offense doesn't skip a beat usually when Mariota's out there. So I'm going to predict 28-20, whether Jaden or Marcus is out there at QB. And now it's your turn down there in the comment section. Predict the score of Commanders versus Falcons for me down there in the comment section. For me, I've got 28-20 Commanders. Let me know your pick down there in the comment section. And just a reminder here, guys, we're going to be going live for Week 4 here on Sunday with our live coverage of Commanders versus Falcons. We're going to be reacting to the entire game. We're going to be going live pretty shortly before kickoff at around 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll have extensive post-game coverage after the game. So make sure you guys stop by Sunday at game time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, for our live coverage of Commanders versus the Falcons. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And make sure you guys click that subscribe button for all of our previews like we did today, all of our watch parties that we do for just about every single Commanders game, plus our post-game reactions to every Commanders game this season. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Thanks for watching this week's Commanders Report preview. Until next time, guys, go raise them hell. First segment in the books, Mr. Ponzi. $20 super chat coming in from Eli Hokies fan, my man. Says if the Commanders sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson, does it make the defense unstoppable? How good are Mariota and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt after versus the Raiders? So first part of the question, Eli Hokies fan, I don't think it makes them unstoppable, because I think the cornerbacks haven't played fantastic, especially in man coverage to start this season. Samerstrill's had a tough start. Lattimore played a lot better last week, but he had a really rough couple of games. And then even Quan Martin has had some issues at safety so far this year. So I won't say that, bringing in C.J. Gardner-Johnson makes this team unstoppable or this defense unstoppable, but it certainly, I think, makes them better. All right, I think that C.J. brings a lot of the things that this team liked about Will Harris, his versatility, his ability to play in the slot, and play deep, not to mention in the box, but also his added size and his added physicality, I think, makes him an upgrade even over Will Harris. So I would go out and get him if he's interested. I'm excited to see what Jeremy Reeves can do this weekend at safety. But, certainly I'm open to having C.J. Gardner-Johnson join the Commanders at this point. When it comes to Mariota and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I think Mariota is probably a top 35 quarterback in the game today, maybe in the top 30 even. He certainly knows this offense backwards, forwards, and sideways. He gets the ball where it needs to go, and he's not quite as dynamic as maybe Jaden is. But, this offense, if you can put together a good game plan for Mariota, he's going to execute it and maybe even give you a little bit more. He's been really, really good when the Commanders have called on him. And then Ja'Cory looked pretty good last week as well. But obviously the big splash run goes to Jeremy McNichols, who had that giant run where he was just pinballing off of Raider defenders. That was really fun to watch. But both of those guys, I think, are pretty darn good players, so that's good news. Another $5 here from Eli says, how do you feel about after the Cowboys lose to the Bears this past Sunday?
They stink.
Yeah, they stink. That is the correct answer there, Ponzi, where, that defense is an absolute joke right now.
How bad Caleb Williams looked against, the other teams that he's played so far, and then the Cowboys, it's like, Matt Eberflus, what are you doing?
I think the Cowboys will lose every game that they play without CeeDee Lamb because
I agree.
They don't have a good enough run game, and now without CD out there, they can just double team George Pickens.
Defense is rely on Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah, exactly. And
Kevontae Turpin's been okay, but he's been hurt.
And Ferguson is a decent tight end, but that team is not good. It's just not. So, and then Trayvon Diggs, it might be the worst starting cornerback in football. He is so bad. And
I've never seen someone fail at the trail technique so bad. He just gets burnt. It's not even trail anymore.
It's just bad, man.
But I will say that the Commanders should feel a lot happier about their interdivision games, except the Eagles. Even then, the Eagles look beatable.
Yeah, the Eagles do look beatable at this point in the year. So hopefully Jaden can get back healthy. Hopefully this team can find a groove and kind of find exactly, the identity of this year's football team. And hopefully by the end of the season they are rolling, and hopefully they can put themselves in position once again to compete for a chance to go to a Super Bowl. So if you guys want to get your question in on the mailbag, how are we doing on questions here, Ponzi?
We have a couple. We have some good ones.
We have some good ones. All right, we're going to give you guys a couple more minutes here, maybe 2, maybe 3 more minutes. If you want to put that shot clock up there, Ponzi. 3-minute shot clock to get your questions in on the show. This is last call for questions on the mailbag today. So if you have a question on the Commanders that you want up on the show today, today's an awesome opportunity to do that. We still got over 142 people watching live right now. So if you guys have any questions, hashtag Commanders, and then get your question in the live chat room. While that clock is ticking, Ponzi, let's talk about tonight's Thursday night football action. It's going to be a fun one tonight in the NFC West. It's going to be the Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals. They're wearing their rivalry jerseys tonight.
Sick. I will say the Arizona Cardinals ones are so sick.
Yeah, I like the desert sand with the red, paint kind of accent on those. I think those are going to look awesome. And then Seattle's it's okay, but I think that the star of the show. It's all right. It's not bad, but I think the Cardinal ones are just fire.
Which one do you think is the worst so far?
I think they all look pretty good.
Yeah.
I can't think of one that looks bad. I think the Rams one looked bad, if I'm not mistaken.
The accent looked a little bad.
Yeah. So tonight, I'm making my pick purely based on aesthetics. I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals that improved to 3-1 with the upset today, Ponzi. My football brain is telling me Sam Darnold, that Mike McDonald defense, it's a better football team. But the Cardinals, man, in those jerseys just can't lose.
I posted it on my Twitter about the Cardinals because I genuinely don't know how to view them. Because I feel like, the first 3 weeks, they've looked really good at times. The defense looks bad, but it's still, serviceable. The offense looks pretty good. But then they get late in the game, they don't know how to close. And I don't think they will continue that trend. Unfortunately, I have, the Cardinals as a good team. But I think the Seahawks will pull it out because, I think that Sam Darnold will light it up. And I think Sam Darnold is proving that maybe it wasn't just Minnesota.
100%. All right, so we got about a minute left to go before we get into this mailbag. I see a bunch of questions in there. Shout out to Steven, Ebony, Ludo, Eon, Wally Goozer. All these guys getting questions in. You got about 50 more seconds to get that going.
I see some very good questions.
I see. Yeah, I mean, this crew always brings the heat when it comes to the questions. So looking forward to getting into the mailbag here, guys, and should be a fun Thursday night football matchup. Maybe not the two best teams in the league or anything like that, but like I like these matchups where like, especially on Thursday night, where it's like they're both good football teams, maybe not elite teams, but they're like divisional rivals. They're wearing cool jerseys, all that stuff. It's just a fun matchup to watch, and it's always great to watch Ravens, Bills, or Chiefs, Eagles, or whatever the case may be. High flight matchups, but it's also fun to see these divisional matchups play out over the course of the season. All right, man. So that's going to be the shot clock is now off. Thank you guys so much for getting your questions on the show here. Ponzi, it's now in your hands to pick the right questions to get on the show. So if your question doesn't make it on the show, guys, don't blame me. It's on Ponzi, all right? So let's get into the mailbag right now to finish up today's show. It's my favorite segment of the week. It is the Commanders Report mailbag here as this team gets ready to take on the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday. I'm going to be answering your questions on the Washington Commanders. And if you guys want to get a question on a future edition of the Commanders Report mailbag, you have to be with us during our live shows that we're going to be doing every single week during the course of the 2025 NFL season. We try to give you guys the most interactive Commanders community anywhere on YouTube, where we go live every week during the week, getting you guys ready for that week's matchup, and then we go live for a live watch party just about every single week for the Commanders game that weekend. So those live shows really give you guys a great opportunity to interact with fellow Commanders fans and get your questions on the show when we do these mailbags. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for the best fan experience anywhere here on YouTube for Commanders fans. We'll start here with Wally Goozer. Says, now that they're in the books, how do weeks 2 and 3, maybe even 4, affect JD5's run for MVP? Do you think he can still get it if the team keeps playing hot? Man, if he misses this week, especially, and you have a 3-week stretch where you don't play your best game in week 2. And by the way, it wasn't Jaden's fault. I think Jaden actually played a pretty decent football game against the Packers. It's just not a lot of people were getting open, and the pass rush was getting home extremely quickly. So I don't think that a lot of the struggles in week 2 were on Jaden, but then to go from that to missing at least 1 week, maybe even 2 weeks, and then honestly not having his best week ever in week 1 versus the Giants either, it's certainly been a slow start to the MVP campaign for Jaden Daniels. I don't think that there's much of a chance that he's going to win it this year, unfortunately. He was my pick to win MVP this year, by the way, guys, but I thought he was going to start a little bit faster. I didn't expect him to get injured, and, I think he's going to have to do some stuff pretty darn special to be named MVP this year, especially with guys like Justin Herbert, Josh Allen absolutely lighting it up to start this season. If they can play that way throughout the course of the entire season, I think it's going to be probably one of those two individuals this year. So Jaden certainly has some catching up to do. Then we got one from Dominic Castro. Says, are we top 3 in the NFC? I would like to think so, but I think we need to see more evidence, Dominic, because there are some pretty darn good teams in the NFC. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles are still really good. Of course, you've got the Los Angeles Rams, who are going to be really, really good this year. And then you've got the Detroit Lions, who look really good again this year as well. So, Tampa Bay is looking pretty darn good. I mean, they've had some injuries, but they're very talented, and Baker Mayfield's balling out. Green Bay is another really good team. So, there's some good teams in the NFC this year, Dominic. To this point, the Commanders have only beaten bad teams, and they got walloped by one of those other teams in the NFC in the Green Bay Packers on the road. So right now, I think if I'd have to rank them, I would not have the Commanders in the top 3. But I think with Jaden Daniels and his ability to be the tide that raises all ships, I think that Jaden has the ability to get this team into that top 3 discussion by the end of the season. Then we got one from JG. Says, what's up with Samerstrill and Quan? Do you think they will come on strong as the season progresses? I don't know, man. It's weird. And, I think what we saw last year with Samerstrill is he might just be a better outside corner than a slot corner. He's getting beat a lot in the nickel, and I was so excited that he was going to be able to move back inside after having to play outside last year because he was so good in the slot in college. But he just has gotten off to a really bad start, and it's really concerning. And what's kind of looking like to me, if this trajectory kind of keeps its pace, the Commanders may have to move Samerstill back out to the outside at some point and be the future number 2 cornerback and have Trey Amos be the future number 1 while Marshawn Lattimore eventually moves on from this football team. I'm hoping that he can turn it around. Same thing with Quan. Both of these guys had reportedly really good training camps, so it's a little bit puzzling why they're struggling in coverage to start this season, but they're both very young players. They're both very talented players. Certainly possible that they could be playing their best football down the stretch. Then we got one from Ludo here. Says, are you worried about Scary Terry's production if he comes back healthy? I'm not, but I know people who are. He needs more targets. Yeah, man. Certainly it feels like because he was out of practice during training camp and even during mandatory minicamp for so long, and they really only had enough time to practice with him for like a week and a half before the season began when he signed that massive contract. He just didn't have a lot of time to build up that trust and that chemistry. And, you might be saying at home, but Jack, these guys have played with each other before. Do they really need that much time to build up that chemistry and trust during the training camp? And the answer to that question is yes. Just look at what happened with Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy last year when Ayuk signed his contract right before the season began. He got off to a really slow start, and then he ends up getting injured. And then CeeDee Lamb, the same thing. Last year with the Dallas Cowboys, waits all training camp long to sign his deal, and then he and Dak get off to a slow start. The team gets off to a slow start, and then there's injuries, right? So it's kind of the same pattern here where, there's a big holdout at wide receiver. It's a slow start, and then there's an injury. It sounds like this injury isn't as serious as CD's and Brandon, especially Brandon's. He's still not back from that, by the way, complete reconstruction of his knee. So hopefully he can get better soon, but it doesn't sound good. Hopefully Terry can get back out on the field here relatively soon, and he can get that connection and that chemistry back together with Jaden, because we saw it last year, man. When these two guys are working, it is a truly special connection. All I really care about at the end of the day here, guys, is that those two are playing their best football come playoff time, because that's when you really need them to be playing their best ball. And as long as they keep filling up the win column, I'm okay with a little bit of growing pains for Terry McLaurin as he gets ramped up. So scale it for me down there in the comments section. What is your concern level for Terry McLaurin after the slow start? Put it on a scale of 1 to 10 for me down there in the comment section. This will be the pin question on today's show. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, take advantage of that time by putting on a scale of 1 to 10 how concerned you are about Terry McLaurin. All right, next question here. We got JG. Says, if the Commanders use the same offensive line, do you think they'll have another dominating run game? It's certainly possible, especially because the Falcons up front are very similarly constructed to the Raiders, where they've got two pretty good edge rushers, and in the Raiders' case, they got a superstar edge rusher in Max Crosby. And here in Atlanta, just like the Raiders, they got kind of a squishy, soft interior of their defensive line, and they don't have the best linebackers in the world. So I think that, we'll probably see probably a pretty darn similar game plan from the Commanders this week, JG. I think that they're going to be running the football quite a bit. I think they're going to be doing some QB run game stuff, and, especially if Terry McLaurin's not out there on the field, they know that they're going to have to get creative in the run game. Certainly expect that from Cliff Kingsbury and his offensive game plan, this week. And we got one from Corey, who says, when will Preston Smith get reps? As soon as this week, Corey, as soon as this week. He signs last week. He doesn't play because he doesn't get ramped up in time. Obviously these guys have to learn a new playbook, new communication, that kind of stuff. But defensive line is one of those positions where you don't have to have as much of an understanding of the defense behind you. You just have to know your role up front. So I think Preston Smith will see him as early as this week here, and I think that he'll be dressed, and we'll see how much he plays. Got a $20 super chat from Eli Hokies fans, as if the Commanders signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Does this make the defense unstoppable? How good are Mariota and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt after the Raiders game? I would say the defense would not be unstoppable if they get CJ. Samerstill struggled in the slot. Certainly Lattimore has had his struggles on the outside, even though he played better last week. Quan Martin hasn't played his best football. So if you add C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I think it makes this secondary better, and I think it makes this team's chances of putting together good wins in the postseason in particular higher. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's helped lead multiple Super Bowl runs in Philly over the last 3 years. And I think he'd be highly motivated to get this team to win a division championship over his former team because they traded him away this offseason. So I definitely think that CJ can make this team better and this defense better, but probably not unstoppable. And then talking about Mariota and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I thought they both played really well versus the Las Vegas Raiders. All right, Ja'Cory certainly hasn't earned like a true number one role yet, but then Mariota has certainly done a good job. Operating the offense, using his legs when needed, getting it to the right guy. He's definitely a pretty darn good football player, guys, and I'm excited to see what he can do if he gets the opportunity to play on Sunday versus the Atlanta Falcons. Now, before we get into the rest of this week's questions here on the mailbag, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Omaha Steaks. And from handcrafted steaks to delicious fall favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Enjoy USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals, plus tailgating favorites like chicken wings, smash burgers, and big deli-style franks. And now, during their red-hot sale, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code NFL Daily at checkout. Again, guys, that's 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus an additional $35 off along with the red hot sale of 50% off. When you use code NFL Daily at checkout. So just to kind of walk you guys through what the experience would look like on the Omaha Steaks website, you can pick from an assortment of different packages here, like the classic favorites assortment, for example, where you guys get multiple cuts of meat. And this one in particular, you guys can see it's slashed in half there with $129.99. And then you add on top of that with our code NFL Daily, you guys can get $35 additional off of that. So for a package here that was originally $265, you can get this right now using our code NFL Daily for less than $100 for premium cuts of quality meat. Get fired up for fall grilling with Omaha Steaks today. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Red Hot Sale event. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code NFL Daily at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code NFL Daily at checkout. See site for details. A big thank you to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring today's edition of the Commanders Report. Got one here from Dreyfus my dog, says, will we utilize Donovan Edwards? I don't think so. I think he's just a practice squad body, somebody that you put on there. I think they like their current rotation of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and, of course, Jeremy McNichols. McNichols showing yet again last week that he is one of the most underrated running backs in the entire National Football League, in my opinion. And I think they like that committee as it stands right now. Then we got one from Hockey Dad 65, says, when will JCM be let loose? I think after his first kind of true standout performance, like if he has a 100-plus yard rushing performance and he has a couple big runs in a game and he really starts to show the coaching staff, hey, let's get out of this committee approach and let's get me the football more often. I think that he will get more and more and more of the share of the carries as the season goes on, Hockey Dad. And I'm definitely excited to see what he's going to be able to do here in his rookie season. Make sure you click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you are a real one, you love the Washington Commanders, and you want to help out our channel today, we really do put in a ton of hours to get you guys the best damn Commanders coverage money can buy, 100% free right here on YouTube. So if you appreciate the efforts that we do for you guys here at the Commanders Report, click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. Got another one coming in from JG here. Says, why is Crowder not a consideration for the wide receiver position? Did he burn bridges? Not that I know of, JG. I just think that maybe this team feels like he's kind of cooked at this point. He's pretty darn old for a wide receiver at this point in his career. Now, could they potentially consider bringing him in because he's got some experience and They could certainly use another receiver that can get open, but is Crowder even that type of guy anymore at this age? I think that is certainly a question mark. Certainly a wide receiver position is kind of a funky one with Terry McLaurin kind of up in the air. Then we got one from Ludo. Says, will Cousins start against us? No, he will not. It will be Michael Penix Jr. Yeah, what's kind of interesting is that Raheem Morris actually threw both of his quarterbacks under the bus when he was asked that question at his press conference this week. He said, we benched Kirk last year. Michael Penix just had a bad game last week, all that different stuff. So you're pretty much saying Michael Penix stinks and Cousins stinks at the same time. So maybe not the best look from Raheem Morris earlier this week. All right, so next one here coming in from Eon says, should the Commanders start Jaden Daniels versus the Atlanta Falcons? If he's healthy, yeah, why not? If he's 100% ready to go, no limitations, no pain, no chance for further injury or low chance of further injury, go ahead. Start Jaden Daniels. Absolutely. Now, what I'll say is you can afford to be careful. All right, like if he's not all the way back, if there's a chance, a medium to high chance that he can get re-injured and he can re-aggravate it where he has to miss more time, just put Marcus Mariota out there, man. Like, first of all, it'd be a great story for him to go back into Atlanta and try and completely ruin the day of those Falcons fans. But also, he's a very, very capable backup quarterback, a capable starting quarterback, honestly, as your backup quarterback. If Jaden is not 100% back, if I'm the Falcons or if I'm the Commanders, I'm playing it safe and I'm playing Marcus Mariota. But if Jaden's 100% ready to go, absolutely start him. Then we got Sean T. Burke says, what do you think about getting receiver help? I like the idea. If Terry's going to be missing some time here, and even if Terry isn't going to be missing time, Noah Brown has already missed time last year and this year. He gets injured like every few weeks at this point, all right? This team needs another separator, all right? Right now, teams, what they're doing is they're double-teaming Terry McLaurin. It's one of the reasons why he's not getting the ball as much, because Deebo Samuel and Zach Ertz are not getting open versus man coverage, all right? So you have to force these teams to get that double team off of Terry McLaurin, and the way that you do that is you add another separator to this group, all right? I was kind of hoping that Luke McCaffrey was going to be that guy, and hopefully he can still be that guy. We'll see this weekend if he can fill that role. But to this point, this team has not found that other side separator to get some of the attention off of Terry McLaurin when he's playing. So I think a guy like Deontay Johnson, somebody that just last year was putting up some really good numbers before he got traded to a different organization, you bring in Deontay Johnson, who's a really good route runner, he can do some stuff after the catch as well. I think that he's the type of man-to-man separator and route runner that this offense could really need, could really use, and could really take this offense to the next level. So if I'm the Commanders, that's the guy I'm thinking about bringing in. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Should the Commanders add another wide receiver? And if so, which wide receiver would you like them to add? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section to answer that question today. And with that, that's going to be it for today's mailbag, guys. Thank you so much for joining me here. We're going to be going live once again on Sunday for our live watch party. Again, that's going to start at around 1 p.m. Eastern time, right around kickoff. And then we're going to have live play-by-play and reaction to the game itself, followed by extensive post-game coverage of this football game. So if you want to check it out, make sure you guys click that subscribe button. If you haven't already, this is what the thumbnail is going to look like. Never mind, I'm not going to show you the thumbnail, but make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. All right, so there's the thumbnail, Ponzi. I kind of misunderstood where you were going with that.
Yeah, I was just trying to get our next shot out.
But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. And I can't wait for this Sunday, man. It's going to be fun to watch whoever's quarterbacking this team try and, work without probably Terry McLaurin. It's going to be kind of an interesting experiment.
It's so weird. I mean, like you said, like we talked about it a little bit in our video yesterday, but like he went to go get like a central specialist or something.
It was a core specialist. Now, it sounds like it's a hip flexor issue.
Which would make sense.
Which is much closer to the core.
Yeah.
And I think it actually is a part of the quote-unquote core because it is in the middle of your body. I'm not an expert, guys. I'm not a doctor, but, obviously it's an issue that Terry feels like he needs to go see a specialist for, which is concerning. He hasn't practiced to this point in the week, so hopefully he can play Sunday, but certainly not looking great. But maybe on the bright side there, Ponzi, they're not going to have their number one corner most likely in AJ Terrell.
One of the best cover corners in the league, by the way.
Exactly. So you're going to have Debo and probably Luke McCaffrey as your top two receivers. Hopefully those guys can win their matchups, at least enough to get this team the victory. I think it might be closer this weekend than people might think. I don't think that Michael Penix and the Falcons will get shut out every week like they did last week. I think last week was just a really bad game for them.
What was the quote that he said? I got to throw it to the guys who are open more.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Michael Penix stinks. So I fully expect the Commanders to win this game with or without Jaden Daniels, with or without Terry McLaurin, with or without John Bates and Noah Brown. I mean, there's a lot of injuries on this team right now, and I still fully expect this team to come out with a victory on the road this Sunday. We will be here for our live coverage again, 1 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday, guys. Thank you for joining us today to talk some Commanders football with us. We will see you guys on Sunday afternoon. And until then, guys, go raise some hail.